Today I'm going to make a video featuring this Stanley number 80 scraping plane. This is a plane that I just bought yesterday. It's an old one. There's a guy down the road from me that deals in old hand planes, and I bought this from him yesterday, and I'm really excited about it because this scraping plane has always been kind of a mystery to me. I've seen them online and I've seen them on YouTube, guys use them and stuff, and I never really had much luck with card scrapers and never really had that much of a use for card scrapers. But yesterday I started making a video on fairing the bottom of this boat. I'm in the process right now of making a video on how I fair it and how I put a finish on this bottom. And in the process of doing that, I do use hand planes. I pretty much fair this by hand. Once in a while, and if I have a piece of wood where the grain is really bad, I'll use this eliminator, like on this keel. I glued a shim on here, and I'm working it down to the bottom. And I had reversing grain in this, and I was using a hand plane at first, but then it started kind of gouging it, so I ended up using this to take it down. Other than that, pretty much this entire bottom is going to be faired in by hand. And if you want to learn more on that, I'm going to have a video ready on how I fair this bottom. But today I wanted to make a video showing this Stanley number 80. When I bought it yesterday, I knew that it was good on reversing grain, and like the piece I had up here, I described that keel, and I didn't know how good it would be. So yesterday I bought it. I went, and the guy happened to have one, and he even happened to have a new blade in it. So I took it's a stock blade. You could tell it's ground from the factory. One edge was straight, and the other edge has kind of an arc to it. So I put it in there, and I didn't really have time yesterday to mess around with it and really wasn't that impressed. And then I went on YouTube last night and figured out how to sharpen this. And boy, am I real happy with it today. I'm going to show you how to sharpen this from what I learned. And there are two ways to sharpen it. Some guys, I noticed from watching YouTube, that some guys will sharpen it. It's ground on a 45-degree angle. Like a lot of my hand planes are at 25, but this is ground at a 45-degree angle. So you would take and grind that, and then put a micro bevel on it, and just leave it, and go ahead and put that in and use it. And I'm going to show you how that works. And then there's another guy that did the same thing. He sharpened it, put a micro bevel, and then put a hook on it, and man, that is really aggressive. So that's what I'm gonna that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna show you how I sharpen it. I've already sharpened it once, but I've used it quite a bit, so it started to dull a little bit. But I was pretty impressed on how much it would cut before it really started getting dull. The hook was still there. So I'm getting ready to sharpen it right now in my Veritas honing guide. And the cool thing is, this actually fits in here. I thought maybe this blade would be too wide, but it fits. So I had to change a few settings on here, and I have it set to 45 degrees. And I put a burr on this one, so I actually took the burr down with this diamond stone here. It didn't take long. I just went across there, took that down, flattened it out. So now I'm gonna grind the primary bevel and put another micro bevel on it real quick and show you how that's done. I made a video on how to sharpen hand planes that's out there right now. It's basically the same thing. Get this in here, line it up, tighten these thumb screws. I really like this honing guide. For me, it works great because I use this piece of glass here with 320 grit. So I tighten that down, take this guide off, make sure that this knob is up. That's going to hit my primary, and I just clamp a piece of wood across here. And just start hitting it, and you can see it's hitting the primary bevel. So I go across there a couple of times just to keep that kind of knocked down. And then there's a setting on here where you take this knob and turn it down, and that's going to lift it up about I think 1 or 2 degrees, and you'll hit that primary or the micro bevel. Looks like it. Can't tell if it hit it. Yeah, it hit it so much that it went way back into the primary, which isn't a big deal. But being on a 45-degree angle, it's a little bit different than my 25-degree. So I'll hit that body there. Now we have the nice micro bevel across there. So now you could, a lot of guys I noticed on YouTube will just put that in that plane and then use that. But I did that already and I wasn't real impressed with it. So I'm not going to put it in and show you, but I'm going to show you the next step is just to put that little hook on there with this burnishing tool. Now I couldn't find this earlier, so I just used a screwdriver. That'll work too, hardened screwdriver. So if this is 45 degrees, you want to go about 5 degrees off of that. So it's not really that scientific. I just kind of guesstimate. But I could actually see that edge going, changing. I could see the light hitting it a little bit different. Let me see. Try that. So I run across there a few times. I can feel that hook on there. And then to set it into the, so that didn't take long. So to set it in here, and I forgot to mention, this iron sits in here at about 15 degrees off of 90. And this is going forward. I usually push it. So you're going to be pushing it that way. So the hook goes forward, and I just kind of set it in here. Make sure this thumb screw is backed out. Set it in there, just kind of index it so it hits the bottom. And then just tighten up the thumb screws. Like that. And then this thumb screw back here, let's see if we can see this. It's going to put an arc in that blade, and it's going to make that middle kind of protrude out. Like that. So it should be all ready for cutting. So this isn't very wide across here, so this really isn't meant to fare. Like this plane here, and I use this bench plane here. I use this is pretty much the first step in fairing. I take this across the wood at an angle because these planks, they're low at the joints and they're a little bit high in the middle. Excuse me. And what I do first is just kind of run this across at an angle, and I just sharpen this one too. So I run this across here on an angle, and just to take down that material. This is the fastest way to do it, I think. And I like to do it by hand like this. Now once in a while you'll hit a piece of wood where like up in here, this piece of wood, I put a few gouges in it. I'm going to have to repair that. That's because the grain in that piece of wood is it reverses a bunch of times. So what I do is kind of hit this first. And then if I really want to dial it in before I take my longboards, because I end up hitting everything with a longboard. If you watch that video on the Capri on the deck, that's how I did it. So I end up hitting everything with a longboard to fair the whole surface. But I hog it first with this to get the high spots down. And then I'll come through, and I did this morning a little bit. Let's see. I'm going to show you how aggressive this cuts. That can take out some of those planer marks instead of trying to sand them all out. Yeah, let me get right up on here. So you see all these marks from the hand plane. I know it's still a little bit high in here. Look how aggressive that is. And it's not gonna tear anything because this works in a little bit different action. You're dragging this iron across here with the angle set back, and you're actually tearing the wood off. It's not a shearing action like one of the other planes, like this plane would be, because this iron is actually digging into the wood. This iron is set back, and you're dragging it across there. So you're not gonna tear out any wood if you have reversing grain, like this piece right here. I know that this piece, it's reversing. You can even hear it sounds different. But look at that. And you could even make it a little bit more aggressive by tightening this a little bit more. It takes a lot of material. Look at this over here. And this keel here, this is a shim that I glued on here to bring it up a little bit. That's that piece that I had trouble with the hand plane. So I used that eliminator on this and flattened this out. But I tested a piece here today with this, and this actually takes it down faster than that eliminator does. And you don't have the noise, you don't have the dust, you're not running your compressor. Watch how fast this takes it down. So I always thought of scrapers as being, not really being able to take that much of a cut, but I'm hogging really with this. It's taking off a lot of material, and it's taking it off faster than that eliminator, and in a more controlled manner even. And then the last place where I think it's really going to shine, I'll get off the boat here, and is when in my final fairing, in my finish sanding. There's a video on YouTube. If you go and type in the history of Chris Craft, there's a little 2 or 3 second clip that's always intrigued me, because I watch those old black and white factory footage, and you'll see there's a 2 or 3 second clip in that video of a couple of guys on the side of a boat. It's a black and white video clip, and the guys, whatever they're using is hidden from their hands. There's a guy on the side of a boat, the boat's raw, it had just been planked, and he's taking this and he's going like this. And then it shows there's a big long line of shavings, and he's got his hands, he's holding it down like this, he's on the hull side, and he's pushing this like this. And there's another guy midship doing the same thing. And for the last couple of years, I would look at that clip, and I'd think, what are they, they're fairing that boat, but they're not sanding it. They're using some kind of plane. And I would almost guarantee that, or I'd bet that they're using this plane. They're using the Stanley number 80, because this has been around a long time. Either they're fairing the boat, or when they planked it, sometimes a plank is, is a little bit higher than another one. They're either bringing that down. So either fairing the boat, or the boat's already fair, and I don't know, maybe they use heavier abrasives like I do, and I go cross grain, and maybe they're getting those cross grain scratches out before they're finished sanding it. So the process I use when I fair any surface, whether it's a bottom or a hull side, I use 40 grit abrasives, and I go across grain, and I go on 45s, and that's the best way, I think, to actually fair a surface, is long strokes with a long board. This one's semi-flexible, so it'll work good on this bottom. And you can see I've been going across grain like this, and then I'll go the other way, and then I'll go directly across the grain, and then the last step is to go with the grain. And that does two things. It fairs it with the, fore and aft, and it also takes these cross grain scratches out. But I think this scraper is really going to help me out and save a ton of time when I get to the point where this bottom or a side is faired. I could, and I need to get all those 40 grit cross grain scratches out, I'm gonna bring this, watch this, you can see all these cross grain scratches. Nope. Okay, my battery went dead there, so I charged it up a little bit. And as I was saying, I think this scraper plane is really gonna work well to take these cross grain scratches out. In the fairing process, I use a 40 grit sandpaper to fair this bottom or a whole side or a deck. And one of the last steps before finish sanding is to take all the cross grain scratches out. And how I've always done that is with 40 grit inline. And now I could take this, and to get these cross grain scratches out, once the bottom is fair, to take these scratches out, I'm going to start using this, and I'll show you here. You can see all these cross grain scratches in here. I'm still going to follow it up by going inline with this, but I could take out 90% of those scratches really fast, and you can see how fast the shavings build up. Now, since you're putting pressure with this thumb screw on this blade and making it arc, what it's going to do is it's going to tend to put a slight scallop in your stock, but that's fine because you're going to go back over it with this. What you're doing is you're getting rid of all those heavy, those deep scratches. So if you go over it evenly, look at how fast I built those shavings up. And there's no chance in really gouging into this with the scraper. And here's that piece of wood that the grain is reversing on it. You can see how it works on that. So I'm glad I found that. And then I'll take, once that's done, then you'll take and do it like I always do, and inline it. But that's going to come into shape really fast and take those scratches out. So I'm pretty sure that's what they were using in that video when I saw that guy with his hand. You gotta get over on this side, move the camera a little bit. If this was the whole side of a boat, he was taking it like this, and he was fairing it. Yeah, actually it'd be like this. He was taking it like this on the side of that boat, and he was creating that line of shavings. So I think he was either fairing it or getting some scratches out. So that's the Stanley number 80 scraper plane. And I'm glad I looked into that and found it. I'm going to be using this a lot, I think. And one thing I was really surprised with is before I started this video, I did a lot of practice pieces, and it stayed sharp for a long time before I had to even resharpen it. And it was still cutting, but I wanted it to be sharp for the video. All right. Okay, I wanted to film one last spot or clip on this scraper plane. I have a piece of mahogany in the vise. It's rough sawn, and you can see the bandsaw or the resaw marks in it. And I'm just going to run this across here and show you how fast it takes it down. You can see those marks a little bit. They're still there a little bit. You just have to make sure that this blade is clear. Sometimes it gets a piece of wood jammed in there. See how fast that is? Now you're just about down to solid wood. There it is. So that'll do it for the Stanley number 80 scraper plane. Okay?